Man.
Oh, yeah, I know Wasey. Yeah, we used to travel together. Yeah, me and Wasey. We've got in the house Mr. Cody Custer, world champion. He is just going to share some knowledge, some wisdom. We're going to talk about his story, talk about his faith, and talk a little bit about your rodeo schools. You've got a few coming up, got some dates on your Instagram.
Yeah, I try to keep stuff on social media, just keep that information out there. And my phone number is readily available to everybody. As I've said, it's probably on some bathroom walls somewhere. So you can get my number. Anybody can get my number.
You bet. Yep. So we're going to dive into this conversation. Then we're about to go buck some bulls as soon as that's over. So check out the next rodeo time that comes out, because you'll get to hear some bull riding knowledge there too. So it's hot outside.
Yep. It's hot in here.
It's hot in here. We're about to buck some bulls, have a podcast.
Yep.
Now on to the stories. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Rodeo Time Podcast. We have the man, the myth, the legend, not so much a myth, just the legend, Cody Custer, in the house, passing through. You're on your way to a big added money bull riding, I assume. Where are you entered?
I've long been retired, buddy. I'm not entered anywhere. I'm entered on the back chute help, I think, at Abilene at the
D-rig
YBR
and shoot.
finals. Yep.
Yeah. Somebody's got to run that D-rig and shoot. PSA to young contestants, thank the D-riggers.
Yeah.
It's a thankless job. They don't even get to watch the rodeo.
No.
Yeah.
It would be not that good of a gig, but someone's got to do it.
It's a good way to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, true that.
So kind of like the security or the elevator guy that just mans the elevator.
Yep. Press the buttons.
With no monitor.
Uh-huh. But so you're taking bulls down to the YBR finals?
Yeah, I sent 30 head down there. So anyway, I've done the junior high nationals first week of June, then got home from that, or last week of June. Then I got home from that, did the Little Britches finals first week of July. Then we had the big world championship junior rodeo in Guthrie last weekend. We took the bulls to that, and then so I'm going to the YBR this week. So
was that the Little Britches?
Little Britches was first week of July.
So what was last?
World Championship Junior Rodeo that Lazy E puts together.
Gotcha.
They had 10,000 per event, so it's a big deal. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
So you've been pretty adamant about, passionate about making sure guys are getting on the right kind of stock. Isn't that what kind of led to you having bulls?
Well, I'll tell you how that all came about a backstory. When I was, however old I was, my dad, we had a roping arena, and we put bucking chutes in there next to the roping box and had rodeos and stuff. We had 30 head of roping steers, and they doubled as bucking steers. Yep. And we had a 300-foot arena. My dad told me when I got on them steers to ride them as close to the end as I could and get off. And so I rode them for maybe 12 or 14 seconds down there to the end, jumped off, and walked back and got on another one. And in 3 summers, I would estimate that I got on about 2,500 head of steers.
Dang.
And so that was my foundation. And, I talked to a lot of these guys about, they skip the steps along the way.
Yes, sir.
When I got on my first bull, I was 2 weeks before my 14th birthday, and that bull had 0 chance to buck me off.
Yes, sir.
But I didn't know that because I was getting on a bull, But so confidence is king. That's my motto with this deal. And so I see a lot of guys skip that little span of getting on a lot of really easy ones and building up your confidence and understanding the movements of animals and stuff like that. Because if you're getting bucked off in 3 seconds, you don't understand the moves. You're fighting everything. Yes, sir. And so so fast forward to 2005, I went to the junior high finals, and my boy Brett would have been 7 years old at the time, maybe 8, but he wanted to be a bull rider, and I saw what was going on. Like, there was bulls at the junior high finals that I was like, gosh, dang, that, ridiculous. And so I went about it the wrong way. I went in guns a-blazing, kind of chewed ass on the leadership of the high school, junior high association, which is the same as the high school. Kind of lost my maybe any kind of place there for a while. So I kind of backdoored, went to Texas Region 1, became the president of the junior high deal there, started we'd buck steers in the fall and buck bulls in the spring, and just kind of feel them kids out and see where they're at. And then ended up, long story short, Cotton George was a guy that kind of helped me get my foot in the door going to the high school or junior high finals down there at Gonzales. And from there, I've just done a lot of youth stuff and really been adamant about speaking out about the bull guys being part of the youth deal. I think if you're gonna bid a youth rodeo, you better dang sure be a youth bull guy.
Yes, sir.
And so anyway, long story short, Herbert Terrio invited me to come do the junior high nationals 5 years ago, or I've done it 5 years, so that's 6 years ago because they skipped 1 year. Since that time, and I don't think in the history before that, you had to ride 2 to make the short go, and every year until this year, they had to ride 2 bulls, and this year there was 2 or 3 guys that got in on 1, but I kind of pride myself on that. We're just backing things out. They're still little kids. I mean,
yes, sir.
And there's going to be a couple of standouts. If you take your standard off of the best guys there, you're doing an injustice to the other guys that might make it.
100%. Yeah. So
and
you're going to have some guys that ride everything,
right?
But that's better than killing off
the
bottom half of the kids.
Yeah. And if the bull system would have been in place like it is now, when I was just starting my bull riding career, who knows if I'd have made it? You know what I'm saying? I never hit 100 pounds till between my junior and senior year. I was a little bitty guy, tried hard, but the bulls were different animal back then.
So there's a lot of guys out there that will get on that ranker stock sooner and still make it. And so I think that,
small percentage.
Correct. Yes, sir. I'm not arguing your point because I agree with you.
Right. You're right.
You've seen my pinnables that I have for interns, but do you think that's what maybe a lot of those young guys see, and then their pride makes them get on, a 22-pointer in a practice pen on a Tuesday afternoon?
What I said was probably the biggest travesty in our era, or in this era, was Jess Lockwood winning the world at 19 years old, because he was a phenomenal bull rider,
exceptional,
and there's 1 in 1,000 like him,
right?
And so what it did is it made a lot of these guys skip the lower end stuff.
Steps.
and yeah, I mean, I made the finals. I made the finals in '87. I almost made it in '86, and I'm glad I didn't, because I wasn't ready. I had another year to kind of, and even that year I probably wasn't as ready as I maybe should have been. But anyway, I just see a lot of guys skipping the steps, and there's a lot of guys that have gone by the wayside. There's a lot of guys that were mediocre their whole career because they got in over their head too quick and didn't mature with the coming up through. And so, and you know what, I can't dash anybody. I can't tell anybody how they got to do it. I just give my advice. I tried to talk Jess into going rodeoing, but he did go rodeo. He just didn't go pro rodeo. He rodeoed for a few years, or maybe several years, from the time he's 15 till he's 18, he rodeoed and kicked their butts up there. So he went and got some experience, but nobody sees that behind the scenes stuff. They see a 19-year-old kid come win the world, and so every 19-year-old kid thinks that's where he belongs right then, and some of them do. I'm not saying that, but the majority of them don't. And,
yes, sir.
And it gets, even further down the line, trickling down, when you're 12 and 13 years old, stay there for a while. And be a little kid for as long as you can, really, in my opinion.
I like how you said you got on your first bull, and that bull had zero chance of bucking you off. That's I
was a badass steer rider. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't just a guy that got on a few steers and then jumped to bulls. Nothing could buck me off in my mind. You know what I'm saying?
So
and I ask at my schools, I tell that story. I say, okay, so out of that 2,500 bulls, how many do you think buck me off? And I always get half. No. If I bucked off of 50, I would be very, very shocked.
dang.
Now, the number 2,500 is just something I pulled out of the air, but it's not. I mean, it could be more than that, but I didn't hit the ground very often, and so what that did for me is made me realize hitting the ground's, that's
A rarity.
yeah, it's not a common thing, and so, and so that's kind of my argument with the high school deal. Just let them conquer.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's the junior rodeo, high school rodeo is preparing you for and you got to test yourself sometimes, but not on a regular basis.
Well, and dang sure not when you've been on less than 100.
Right. Yeah. That's the whole point. Like,
You test yourself on that, like you said, that 3,000th, animal. Yeah. That's when you maybe test yourself. Yeah. But that's what I try to do with interns. I get a lot through here that for some reason, even before I had the intern program, I just seemed to be a guy that had access to a practice pen, and going through college and whatnot. Like I was always the guy that like, hey, I want to ride a bull, and they would call me or get a hold of me like, well, call this guy, so anyhow, I've always, and most of them are bucket list bull riders.
Right.
And so you dang sure don't need to put somebody like that on a 22 pointer, but I agree with that philosophy early on. Growing up with, I've you see guys do it all kinds of different ways, but these guys here, I really try to talk to them about, conquer that. Anyhow, so what was next after your first bull? What comes next after that story? You get on that first bull, and then what were those years following that like for you?
Oh, I was part of the AJRA, the Arizona Junior Rodeo Association, and Arizona High School, and there were some jackpots and stuff, and so I would say I was probably by the time I turned 16, got my driver's license. My dad had been in a bad accident, and so he wasn't there to help me, and so I had a lot of influence from different people, but I started going to jackpots and riding against grown men and stuff, and it was, the bulls were a lot toned down compared to nowadays at a practice or jackpot place. But I got a really good opportunity when I was 15 to go with Jack Ward and T.J. Walter one summer, and I was with them for 3 weeks, and I got on a bunch of turnout bulls, and it was one of the, it's kind of a dream deal. I met Butch Kirby and Bobby Del Vecchio and Denny Flynn, guys that I'd watched and admired their riding, and they were big stars and all that stuff, and they all treated me good, and so it was kind of one of them deals. And I got history like with John Quintana when I was a kid. He always made me feel like I was supposed to be there,
Yes, sir.
And I was just a kid, but I never met him as an adult. He moved off to Australia, and then he ended up being killed. But I never did meet him as me being an adult. But just guys like that were. But anyway, that opportunity to go that summer, I was just riding around with them guys, and
yeah.
It's funny, they didn't know I didn't have my driver's license, but so I drove a lot.
Yes, sir.
And I had my permit, but anyway,
right.
I learned a few things about driving the hard way.
Did you get paid for turnouts? Didn't they used to give, a lot of guys give
$10,
$20.
$20.
10, $20.
Yep.
How old were you when you first made the NFR?
I was 22.
So from those 7 years, that's when you really grew as a bull rider.
Yeah, I just went to everything I could go to where I was at and got on a lot of practice bulls. When I cracked out going in the PRCA, I traveled with a bunch of different guys. I didn't really have any one person I traveled with, but I would say about, that 1985 was my rookie year.
Yes, sir.
And I rode saddle broncs, barebacks, and bulls the first half of the year.
Really?
Yeah. Filled my permit in the bareback riding mostly,
Dang.
partly in the bronc riding, but and I wanted to be a bareback rider. That was my life. That's what I wanted to be when I was a kid. I loved bareback riding, and
There were a lot of bareback riders back then, weren't there?
yeah, there was lots of them.
Like,
I made the circuit finals on my permit in 1983
in the bareback?
in the bareback riding, yeah. And I broke my hand, my free arm, the week of the circuit finals, and so I had a big old cast on my free arm. And I show up at the circuit finals in Farmington, New Mexico, and I've got Sheep Camp, Bucking Horse of the Year. And man, I was really jacked. I was ready to go, And Sheep Camp had 2 trips. He had one where he kind of set up and stayed right in front of the chutes, and he had a long trip where he'd yank your arm off. And for me, he just set up and he was just right there, right in the gate, just right close anyway. And I tagged him 3 or 4 times and stayed tucked, and I got a little cocky and reared back, and my hand blew out about, 6 seconds, maybe 7, I don't know. But I went on to place it in 2 other go-rounds and rode my other horse as a 4-header back then. I probably would have won the average if I'd have just kept my chin tucked.
Yes, sir.
But that might have changed my course of my career too. But after that, I started getting on some horses that were Tom Thumb was like an NFR eliminator pen horse, and he yanked the dog out of me and kind of made me start. Those little floaters were pretty easy, but getting on ones that were strong and moving forward and droppy, that didn't work too good for me. So about June, I left my rigging and my saddle at the house, and I still entered some circuit rodeos, but I took off riding bulls.
That was how about exactly how my bareback riding went. No, not exactly, because I didn't ride as good as what you're describing. But I got on, and I really enjoyed the hoppers, and then I did not enjoy the arm jerkers. I got on Medicine Woman and Cool Water in the same year, and those are 2 of the big horses that really just taught me that, like, I'd rather get on bulls and broncs.
Yeah.
But so did you get on that many bareback horses? Probably didn't have access to 2,500 head.
No, sir. No, I never got on. I don't think I got on. I got on some ponies, when I was young.
Yes, sir.
I think I got my first hard rigging was 1982. Before that, I just had a regular old, just hang on to it.
Sursangle?
I don't know what they call it. But
Sursangle, maybe?
But
so when you 87, you go to your first NFR, and you made it 5 years in a row. Who were you traveling with mostly through there?
Well, there was a bunch of different guys I traveled with. Tommy Walters was a guy from Washington that he was going to make the finals in 87, and he tore his groin real bad and just never was able to finish the year out. And I ended up 15th that year, so probably good for me, but bad for him. Traveled with a guy named Art Watson quite a bit in my career. 1988, I got opportunity to get, 1986, I got in with Bobby Delvecchio and Glenn McIlvain. So that was me transitioning from just a guy that was just kind of added money or, placed a little bit every once in a while to getting in with some guys that have been there and done that. And so I felt like it catapulted me to the next level. And then I ended up making the finals in 87. And then 88, I got the opportunity to get in with Ted Noose. And I traveled with Ted for that year of 88, which is really when my bull riding went to a different level. Got in a wreck at the finals and got my head stomped on and my ribs and cracked a couple ribs and gave me a pretty bad concussion. And it was one of those things where you either cowboy up and go be a bull rider or go do something else. And I came back in 89 and had a really good year. That was the year Lane got killed. And I'd lost a good friend the year before, Jeff Crockett, and that was kind of a turning point in my life, as far as my beliefs and my strategy in life and how I was going about things. And I made a decision for the Lord at that point, and part of that was due to my conversations with Jeff and my relationship with Jeff, and his life and his death really affected me in a good way. And anyway, we're coming up on that anniversary, not too far from now, August 28th. But anyway, so fast forward to 1989. After Lane got killed, was really one of those deals. I was hurt when it happened, and I remember my first bull coming back after Lane got killed. I was going to Garden City, Kansas, and I had a big bull of Chris Headland's that had horns about that long on each side, and he was known to sling them up in your face and smack a few guys and stuff. And I remember driving, and I was just thinking, man, this is it. Like, I'm gonna know if I want to be a bull rider.
Yes, sir.
And Lane was such a good guy and flamboyant and personable and cared about people. He's one of them guys that he remembered mom and dad's names, and he wasn't surface. He was a deep guy. And anyway, I remember getting on this brindle, and about the third jump, I just remember being right between those horns out there where I was supposed to be, and my thought was like, man, I love this. And
dang.
And I never questioned it again after that. Like I never questioned if I was going to be a bull rider ever again after that until the day I decided to quit.
Yeah.
So.
Dang. So what was different about 92 when you won the world?
Well, let's get back to 91 at the NFR. In the 9th go round, I got a bull stepped on me, and I was kind of hurt. Like, I wasn't feeling very good, and I knew the 10th round was the TV pin. And I told my wife, I said, I'm getting on Wolfman or Outlaw or Moneybags, or no, what was that bull? Whatever. There was 91 of 911 was his number. I won the Dodge Circuit Finals on that bull. And those were the three that I was like, man, I think I can ride them. The rest of them, I wasn't. They were Pacific Bell and whatever else was in there. I was like, I don't think I'm going to get on tomorrow. Well, I go by the office, and I got 624 Wolfman. And so I was like, man, here we go. So I got on him, and 94
95
points.
and a half.
That was 94. And that was Red Wolf. That was a different year.
Oh, Red Wolf. Sorry.
Different decade, maybe. No. Pretty close. But anyway, so I rode Wolfman and won the 10th round. I was 91 points. And I remember after everything was over with, they were interviewing me, being the high mark ride of the finals, and Tough was the world champ that year. And so I just remember doing these interviews and going to the locker room, and it's my rigging bag and Tough's rigging bag. It's just like, and I thought, you know what? I'll be the champ next year. And so right then, that moment, I knew that 92 was going to be the world. I was going to be the world champ, and I never doubted it. I started the year off. I won second at Denver, and I might have won Tucson, placing around at Houston, and when I won Salinas that year, and I took the lead, and I never lost the lead after that. So, dang. But the cool thing about that year was Jerome Davis was a rookie that year, and he had gotten hurt, and so the guys he was traveling with, they were doing their own thing, and I was going to enter with David Fournier, and so we loaded Jerome up with us, and we started the first week of August, and we had Myron DeWart was with us too, and the first week of August we took off, or we all met at Ada, Oklahoma, and like Jerome won first, I won second, or no, David won first, I won second, Jerome won third, and Myron placed. So we started our run together, like just kicking their butts,
Dang.
And by the time Pendleton was over, which was 5.5 weeks, we had won over 50,000 in the truck, and that was in '92. That's and put that in perspective. I won 148,000 to win the world, which was an earnings record for the bull riding at that time. So we won a lot of money in a short span of time. We were we were kicking butt, man. It was a good time. And Jerome, I was talking to him the other day when I saw him, and he said, man, I just sat in the back seat and listened to you and David talk. He said, because we talked bull riding from the time we left one rodeo to the time we got to the other one. We're breaking things down and evaluating. And David's really, in my mind, he should be doing some training on some guys, because he breaks things down in such a way that you can't miss it.
Student of the game.
Yeah, I mean, and both of us were. So we were feeding off of each other, and it was like nothing could go wrong. It was just so good, and that was, and then that was the year the PBR was formed. So there was a lot of cool stuff that happened in that little span there. Jerome got to be in on it, and me and David got to be a part of it, and we had big thoughts about it, but I don't think we ever dreamed it'd ever get where it is now.
It's such an innovative and risky thing to step out and do that paid off.
Well, I've heard a couple of the guys that are part of it, that were part of the beginning, saying how smart we were. I don't know that it was so much we were smart. All the things fell together for it to happen.
Yes, sir.
And we were just guys out there seeing that there was promoters making a lot of money and not putting up much for us, not providing insurance. The bullfighters weren't the ones we picked, we would have picked, and so that's kind of how that whole deal came about. Is we kind of all just got together and we're like, hey, we're trying to make a living riding bulls, and the promoters are making the big money, and we're just getting little scraps. So we went together and formed a collective bargaining group, and that's kind of how the PBR started. There's a lot of stories, I think it'd be interesting to hear a story from each guy,
origin story
as to how it all came about, but because everybody's got their own version of it, I'm sure, and
yes, sir.
BRO was up and going, and most of us didn't agree with the guy running that, and I didn't even go the first year just because of our difference of opinion, and a bunch of the guys got together and told them that if I didn't get to go, they weren't coming. So I got to go in '92, and that was the year we formed. That's when all that stuff went down, and I won it in '92. So they should have left me out in the cold, probably.
89, right in the middle of your 5 years of going to the NFR. You still had the PBR thereafter, but 89 is when you got saved. What was it like rodeoing, and then in somewhat the prime or close to the prime of your career, you
well,
come to know Jesus?
So here's my story. It was 1984 when I got saved. When I made a conscious declaration and prayed, that the Lord saved me, but for 4 years, I was just kind of out there, not really. I was just doing my thing, and Jeff's death that was in '88 actually. Just the conversations we had that year, just everything led to that. It all led to that, and so a couple of weeks, or maybe a week after Jeff got killed, me and Beaver Jernigan got baptized at Pueblo, Colorado, in a cold swimming pool, and that was just, it's kind of like my eyes got open to a lot of stuff. I don't think baptism really saves you. I mean, it doesn't save you, but it's just a declaration of living for the Lord, and my eyes were open to a lot of stuff, my lifestyle changed quite a bit just after that, and a lot of it had to do with Jeff and my relationship with him, and so let's fast forward all the way to 2011. My son Aaron got killed in a car wreck, and maybe a week or two after he was killed, I was just having the worst day of my life, or one of the worst days of my life, and it's like the Lord kind of spoke to me that Aaron was to a lot of people what Jeff was to me.
Dang.
And so his death, it was kind of a comfort, you know what I'm saying? Like it was,
yes, sir. Big peace.
I mean, I already had comfort in where he was at and all that stuff, but it was just a comfort to me, like that was the plan.
Yes,
and
sir.
Somebody said something about the old devil, you know, this and that. I said, no, our days are numbered, man. It was, the Father knew this long before any of us were around, so I'm not going to blame nothing on the devil. But anyway, it's like right now is an emotional time of year. Today's my brother's anniversary, his death 7 years ago, and my dad was last Saturday, 4 years ago. And then Aaron's coming up here on the 16th, and then Jeff on the 28th. So this month, July used to be my favorite, or August used to be my favorite year or time of year month, I guess. My birthday's the 30th, so I don't like this time of year. I don't like this month, but on the other side of it, it's like I get to reflect a lot on the memories and the things that I was able to do with my dad, my brother, and my boy. And I don't know. I get a little. I'm not really a big emotional guy.
Yes, sir.
But I get a little emotional certain days, and today's one of those days. Just driving down, I was thinking about my brother and stuck his picture on my Facebook, and picture of me and him, and just what a genuine, pure guy that guy was, and I sure do miss him a lot. But at the same time, it's not long before I get to see him, I guess. So,
yes, sir.
Anyway,
that just thinking about life, in the way that everybody's day is gonna come, and so the more people you have in your life, family, friends that you care about, their day is gonna come, and sometimes it comes quicker for some than others.
Well,
but
I was with you right after your dad passed, and
yes, sir.
And I think I might have shared that story with you about Aaron and about Jeff. So, I mean, thinking back, I think I did.
Yes, sir.
I think that was, so I think we go through hardships to help other people when they're
absolutely
going through it. And I know we spent a lot of time talking and praying together.
Yes,
and
sir.
Stuff. So,
yeah, that one of the things that after my dad died, one of the things that he was at his rodeo, I was at mine. I always went to that rodeo with him. We always went together, but I just didn't. And I was with Sammy in Paris, and anyhow, me and Leroy went down there and picked him up and went through all the deal. There was a funeral, and then a day or two later we had a funeral in Lubbock, but then we buried him out here, and so it was kind of a drawn out deal, which 3, 4, 5 days, and after it was all said and done, like I looked back on since the day he had died, and 5 or 6 days had gone by, and I hadn't asked myself where he was. I realized, I didn't have to check with myself, and I didn't consciously think, like, I wonder if. Right. It was as sure, like, we know that gravity exists, and if this table weren't here, those 2 Bibles and that cup of coffee would drop to the floor because gravity exists there, but we don't have to consciously acknowledge it to respect it, so it's become so much a part of our lives every day that we respect gravity. And I realized, like, in those 5 or 6 days after my dad had passed, that that's where my heart was with where he was at the moment. And that for me was such a peace, because then I knew, all I had to do was, like you said, wait it out, and then I get to see him too. So that was, and you never get to see the full effect. I like, 10,000 things is what God's got going on when we only see 2 or 3. Right. But over time, that ripple effect of that person and the effect Jeff had in his life over time, like 2 years later, you meet so-and-so and realize that Jeff impacted his life. And anyhow,
right.
Jeff's death, it like sent this in motion, 10, 20,000 different things that God had control over. But in that moment, in that pain, we can only see 1 or 2. And anyhow, I just hope and pray my death is one similar to Jeff's, that it's something that's impactful to people where they have that same sort of response.
It will be. You know what I'm saying? That's most people in life have. Our relationships aren't happenstance. Every relationship has some kind of impact on one or the other. You know what I'm saying? And that's why, when I'm doing these schools, I talk to the kids, the guys that are part of these schools about, hey, this is more than just a bull riding school. I want you guys to know that you got to respect people. You got to look people in the eye. You got to shake your hand. You got to shake their hand. And you're wearing this cowboy hat, which I don't have a cowboy hat on, but you're wearing this hat. You walk into a store, you represent everybody that's wearing a cowboy hat. And so your life has an impact on the people around you, good or bad, one way or the other. And so I think a lot of, young people don't think about that. You don't think about the impact that you have on somebody. And if you're going to be a turd to the waitress, who knows what's going on in her life? You know what I'm saying? She might have lost her dad last week, and
Absolutely.
She might be being sharp and snappy with you. You don't know.
Absolutely.
And that's, I read something actually this morning, I think, about you never know what people are going through, so be kind.
Yes, sir.
Be kind. And look, I'm guilty of blowing my stack, and
yes, sir.
And when I do, I try to get it right pretty quick. I think, and that's what I talk to them guys about. Like, hey, you make a mistake, whatever it is, make a mistake, get it right quick.
Yes,
because
sir.
then it pulls it off of you, and if whoever you did wrong or whatever can't accept it, that's their problem. And so, I don't know. I try not to get. I don't want to try to get too deep with them in all that stuff, because they're there to learn to ride bulls. But at the same time, I want them to understand that their life really matters. And bull riding, in your span on your life, if it's that long, bull riding's maybe that long.
Yes,
with
sir.
a 21-year career. I rode professionally for 21 years, and it was over in an instant.
Yes, sir.
And when you're 16 or 22, whatever, you're not thinking that way. You're like, it's going to last forever. It's going to keep being there. And I did that till I was 38. I quit when I was 38. That's and I need
most bull riders don't ride that long.
No, and
most of them are younger than that when they quit.
Yeah, and fortunately for me, or I say fortunately for me, the reason that happened is I had from 93 through 97, I had injuries that kept me out for a good part, most of the year. And so I had 5 years there where I was not just going hard and, putting torture in my body or whatever. So I was able to go a little bit longer. And fortunately for me, I didn't have anything major other than I had shoulder issues, and that was about it. I had one knee issue back in '87, and it never affected me. So the shoulder deals were kind of my injuries there after I won the world, and kept me from going to the finals another 5 times, But I was in the top 15 4 of those 5 years when I got hurt, and so I could have gone to the finals 4 or 5 more times, But it happened right after, in '93. It happened right after Aaron was born, not long after Aaron, my oldest boy. And at the time, I was a little bit torqued, and kind of questioned God about it all. But I got to see my little boy.
Yes, sir.
I got to see the first part of his life on a consistent basis. And so looking back, it was really good timing if it was going to happen, And got to see his, I don't know if I saw his first steps, but I saw him grow up. I got the from being an infant to being a little kid. So it wasn't really bad, but at the time you're going, God, what's this about? Like, here I am trying to, do right and be a good guy and all this stuff, and you get, and that's kind of the religion on you too, going, well, here I am, and here's these little potheads, and
I deserve this.
Yeah, exactly. And so maybe that's part of what the lesson in the middle of it was. I don't think God actually hurts you on purpose, but you learn some things through. There's that saying that everything happens for a reason. I don't know about that. I think everything that happens, there's reason inside of it. You know what I'm saying? It's not. I don't think everything happens for a reason, because maybe because you're stupid and stand in the wrong place or something. But
right, yeah. Sometimes the reason is you make bad decisions.
Or tape your elbow the wrong way and tear your bicep tendon, like I did. That was a reason, was I didn't pay attention to what I was doing. So, but anyway, long story short, I don't get so wrapped up in all the, I used to, if I do good, I'm gonna get blessed.
Yes, sir.
And that's to me, do good.
Yes, sir.
And take the blessings, but don't do good because you're gonna get blessed.
Right.
And
so I used to, I felt like I was like doing my best to avoid sin, and I would really try to store up that ERA, the eternal reward account. Right. I'm tithing, I'm helping this widow,
that's what religion does it makes us think the wrong way about it.
And so I would try to check those boxes, and then these blessings would happen in my life, and then I was like, oh man. But then I realized and I got to check myself, those blessings are available for everyone, number one. Number two, God doesn't need Dale Brisby. I may have a lot of followers on each of these platforms, and it's great that I talk about Scripture. It's great but God can turn this table into a quote unquote influencer if he wanted to. He doesn't need me. And I don't deserve anything he has to offer. I do think that God put some basic reap what you sow fundamentals in this life. So, for instance, if you just make the conscious decision every day to eat healthy, you're going to be healthy. If you exercise and eat healthy over time you're going to be more healthy than, and it's just
right.
It's a reap what you sow, which is Galatians 6:7, I believe. And there's principles put in place like that are cause and effect. Then there's some things that happen in our lives that we don't have control over. For instance, I literally have a person that works for me has a neighbor. They had a relative that they kind of knew but didn't know anything about die, and they inherited $500,000 or something crazy. It's like a movie.
Yeah.
Then they don't have control over that, and it's a blessing. There's these other things that happen that are negative, like a passing of a family member that you have no control over, a pandemic. There's things that affect us that we don't have control over, but we feel like, why me? But I think if you can get every morning to a place where I don't deserve anything God is blessing me with, I'm thankful for it, I'm going to live a life obedient to Him in response to the love that He gives me, because if you look at, all the apostles were martyred.
Yeah.
They were like
lucky suckers.
Beheaded. They were, Paul was in prison most of his Christian life. And here they are, the ones that Paul wrote most of the New Testament, and he's in prison, while he's in prison. So, being a Christian doesn't necessarily mean, I imagine it was maybe the opposite for you at times. Like after you in 88, you probably then experienced a lot of challenges, because then the devil does want to put some stumbling blocks in front of you.
So how that kind of all went down is I started following, I guess, some teachings of men, and really became what I didn't like about a lot of minister type guys, and I didn't realize it at the time, and maybe I wasn't as bad as I look back and think, but like my buddy Aaron Seamus told me, after he made a decision for the Lord, he told me, he said, the way you treated me has a lot to do with where I'm at. He said, you never treated me like it was anything less than you. He said, you love me like a brother. And so, but I think the first thing we get told when we make a decision for the Lord is you got to go out and witness. Well, what's that really mean? Because I was still drinking beer and still partying, and I mean, in that 4 years, but I would go back and forth. I'd go back and forth. So I'm sure, which now, I'll drink beer. I'm not holier now about that. But my point is, I think we get the guidance from people that are trying to make us be do-gooders instead of lovers of God and lovers of people, which is pure religion.
Yes, sir.
So if we can get that, if we can love God and love people, and I'm still going to make mistakes, work cattle with me for a little while.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that 100%. I think we do need to, Romans 10:9-10 says, if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus Christ is Lord, you will be saved. So there is, I think, a verbal, like you said, the declaration you made when you got baptized. The baptism itself didn't save you, but you did confess it with your mouth, and this is what you believe. You're not ashamed of it, and I think that's important. Right. Early on, when I first started rodeoing, I felt like I had to be the guy behind the chutes that gathered everybody, shared one or two scriptures, and prayed. And I felt like I had to say that. I felt obligated. And then I learned, like I remember one specific rodeo, maybe 12, 14 years ago, maybe 15. I don't remember exactly the year, but Heath DeMoss was there. And I don't even remember if he came over, but I remember feeling like called to, and I don't want to be disrespectful to my younger self and say that I shouldn't have brought everybody together at all. That's not what I'm saying. No. But I do think that me having what the words I spoke at that rodeo that night, however long ago, were important. But the way that somebody like, for instance, Heath DeMoss, who was there that night, has watched me live my life over the decades since, is way more of a sermon than that was. Right. And so that sermon, how we treat, like you're talking about, like how you love on people, I believe that's the true sermon. Because if you're not living out that sermon, the words you're speaking are meaningless.
Well, and like I was in ministry, in organized ministry for a while, and I started writing some articles for a couple of different magazines, and I wrote this one article talking about one trip in particular where my whole goal was to get this guy saved, and so all I did was talk about my version of how he needed to do it. And when we got out of the truck, he's had some words for me, and he hated my guts after that. And so the article that I wrote was, how much better of an impact would I have made on that guy's life if I'd have just got to know him, find out who his kids are, what his kids' names are, how he grew up. What if I would have done that? How much more? And you know what? I may have never been able to talk to him about the Lord, but if I'd have been his friend, he'd have trusted me more, and who knows? But to this day, he doesn't really. I don't know if he hates me, but he won't come around me.
Yes, sir.
And so I decided that I don't witness. I'm not a witnesser. I don't go out and try to witness, but somehow it always comes back around there with a lot of people without me even putting the pressure on myself to do it or putting the pressure on them. You know what I'm saying? It's just, and after my dad died, I went through some tough stuff. Aaron was killed. He was gone overnight. Danny was killed. He was gone overnight. Dad died, and I watched him die. And I was there for a good part of that time. And I just remember leaving him and knowing I was never going to see him here again, you know. And it wrecked me, you know. I dealt with it for a while. It's been 4 years, and I'm feeling like I'm normal again. But you know, it messed me up for a while, and you know, thank God for people around me. You know what I'm saying? That I've got some great friends that I can share stuff with, and they help me through some stuff. And anyway, so that's what this is all about. Anyway, it's about the people we meet.
Yeah, sure.
The this stuff right here. This stuff right here is more this than it is this. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, I don't pray every day. I don't read my Bible every day. And there's some people out there preaching that if you don't, you're serving the devil. Well, okay. Say what you want. I mean, it's not about that. It's about about him. It's just it's not what I do. It's what he does. So anyway, I don't know. I really get to talking about this, and I don't want it to go the wrong direction because I don't really want to knock a lot of people, but there's a lot of people out there doing probably more harm by putting pressure on people and it's pushing them off than drawing them in and letting, my buddy I live down there by, we've had more intimate conversations that had spiritual implications in his barn drinking beer than we ever did the times I got him to go to church with me.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, I mean, somebody's going to say that's heresy, whatever.
No, I don't think it's that.
But somebody will say that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That so anyway, I just want to live my life and be a God lover and a people lover and
one thing we talk about it a lot. I've listened to it a lot. Anybody that's, a frequent reader to this podcast, listener to this podcast has heard me talk about it, but there's a book, Mere Christianity, in chapter, well, there's a couple places where it talks about this, but it talks specifically about pride. And then there's another part of the book where it talks about, God judging people. And I don't know that it's all necessarily a level playing field. So I think that this might be the case when it's the fact that if God is the one judging us, there may be somebody in this hand that, let's think they're both Christians, but there's somebody in this hand that does it all. They are tithing. They're not getting drunk. They're not, fornicating. Whatever the list is, they're doing it right. They've sinned, but and then you got this other person who's doing all those things, but they're pretty much doing everything this other one's not. And then there's just a couple of those good works that they're working on. But maybe because of the way their lives were set up, their DNA, for whatever reason, to God, this person on the left hand who's done one or two quote unquote good things in their life, but believed that Jesus was Lord, is going to have more rubies in their crown than this guy on the other hand. Because maybe his situation or DNA or whatever you want to call it, he was set up he was good, but he should have been this, that, or the other. I think there may be some nuances to that as far as judgment, that who we think is going to be real tall and mighty in heaven may not be that may not be the case. And that he made this point, and he's a much more elegant speaker, C.S. Lewis is, than I am. But man, it hit home for me, because then later in the pride chapter, he talks about pride is what made the devil. And that chapter's called The Great Sin. And he talks about how some people will, out of pride, check these boxes: not drink, not have sex, not all for pride. Well, the devil's going to let you do that. Just, if you're doing it for pride's sake rather than, and he talks about how with that pride, so long as you're looking down on people, you can never look up. And anyhow, that's something that shook me to my core this year, realizing that like society, we may have it wrong as far as, and Christians, a lot of Christians may have it wrong. Like, you know, who God is really nodding his head to and who he's shaking
It's
his
none
head
of our
to.
business.
Exactly.
Other than love people.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the, you know, I saw a deal on Facebook. I don't know, this might be 10 years ago. I don't know how long ago it was, but a guy that was really influential in my life when we lived in Oregon, and wildest son of a buck you ever saw, and like just wild, you know, and just loved me like I was his buddy, you know. He was always had me around, you know. We were pals and stuff, and I learned some bad stuff from that guy.
Yeah.
And anyway, I saw he passed away, and I just I put on that post. I just said, "Rest in peace, my friend." You know, whatever. I see you on the other side or whatever. And another guy from up there that I knew back then that was a Christian now, he put on there, well, there'll be no peace for him. Or no, he sends a private message to me. There'll be no peace for him, just gnashing of teeth and whatever else he wrote. I don't know. And I was like, so how do you? I was like, how do you know that? And he said, well, I witnessed to him several times, and he never prayed the sinner's prayer. And I was like, so he didn't do it with you, so you're gonna? I said, you don't know what happened in that guy's life even if at the moment.
Right.
You don't know what was his. You know what I'm saying? And to me, it just like it was sad for that guy to sit there go judging that guy because he was wild and stuff. But you don't know what. Just because he didn't respond to you, maybe that's why. You know, I said maybe that's the problem.
Right.
Maybe that was the problem, is you were witnessing to him. You don't know. Go judge yourself. You know. And saying I don't know. It's just.
Well, we get a lot of people asking like how to get started. I did a video a couple days ago, how to get started riding bulls for under $700, and essentially half of it was fuel, and the other half was getting to a rodeo school. And we even named off. We put your link in there and talked about the schools that you're doing. I think we listed off like 20 schools that are going to happen in the next 6 months in this country that people can go to. But because there's so many people that ask me how to get started, and that's where the idea for the show came from, How to Be a Cowboy. Mm-hmm. I was talking to the producers, and I was telling them about all these DMs I get. So what's your 2 cents to somebody, whether they're 16, 22, 26, how to get started riding bulls?
Well, I mean, the first thing is go to a school that's going to teach you good foundation stuff. And there's a lot of schools going on right now that don't put a lot of effort into that foundation stuff. My philosophy and my way of doing it is breaking it down to physics. It's science. One thing affects the other. And if you're doing something wrong with one thing, it's going to affect something else. If your feet come up, it's usually not your feet. It's your free arm or your posture. And so that's what I like. My schools, I take the first day and just, it's all groundwork. We don't just jump on bulls and see if anybody can ride. I talk about things, and you know, there's guys that have been rodeoing in the PRCA and, you know, or riding bulls, trying to make a living at it, that have come to my schools that are like, God, I never heard that. And so, and then there's beginner guys. But so if you have a foundation, a place to go to when things fall apart, then you can do something about it. But if you don't have that foundation, you start chasing everything.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of like Christianity. If you don't have that foundation, you start chasing everything. And so, I'm real adamant about core stuff and control of the free arm is a big deal. But anyway, so I kind of got off the subject. I mean, go to a school where you can get some good foundation and have something to build on.
Yes, sir.
And the proper drills, getting on the right stock. You know, you get guys that get on 17 bulls and then they go enter a PBR or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can't do it that way. You gotta go through the process. Yep. I saw a kid the other day that never been on one until he came to my school in Cody, or where was that at? It wasn't Cody, somewhere. Oh, Thomas, Oklahoma. This kid never been on one. He looked like Jim Sharp. I mean, freaking, he rode the first 6 bulls he got on.
Dang.
And he finally got bucked off one, but they were just the bulls that I use.
Yes, sir.
And so he got on one that was a little bit more than the rest of them and got him bucked off, but it wasn't a big bad mistake. It's just because he didn't have the. And so I talked to his dad about, hey man, take care of him. Don't let him get in over his head, because they're going to see, these bull guys that are just trying to get the next bucking bull of the year, see this kid can ride. Hey, bring your kid over, get on my calves.
Right.
No.
Right.
Bad news.
Absolutely.
After you've been on 300 head, then maybe, but not after you've been on 6 head. So anyway, that's my philosophy, and toning things down. Through my career, during the week, I was going to get on practice bulls, and I never picked the best one. I always picked little 17 pointers so that I could work on little things that I felt like that week was lacking.
Yeah.
And so have a plan, have a strategy, and it's not, you don't accidentally become a bull rider. You got to have a strategy, much like everything else in life. You got to have some kind of strategy and go about it in a structured way to get where you want to go. So
yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, most of the people that reach out to me and say, how do I get started riding bulls, I tell them don't. I try to talk them out of it.
That old story, get a bag of marbles and put them in your mouth.
Exactly.
Spit one out, and when you lose all your marbles, you're a bull rider.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't know. I'm just on the fence about, for instance, helping guys that, like a bucket list thing. It's just such a dangerous thing to be a bucket list type item, or do something for just the adrenaline, So if I can talk you out of it, I do. And then maybe you weren't supposed to be one anyway, but if I can't talk you out of it, let me help you.
You got a chance.
Exactly. That's how.
You really tried to talk me out of riding broncs.
I really tried to talk Donnie. Donnie was here for a year. He never wanted to get on bulls. He got on bulls to get on broncs.
Yeah, because I wanted to get on broncs.
It was like one of the most disappointing things for JB.
Yeah.
He was like your biggest fan.
I know. He liked it. He wanted me to be a bull rider. He even told me when I told him I was going to get on broncs, he's like, you'll be back. He's like, it'll take a couple times. You go, woo, and you'll be back.
Bronc riding's just so.
Because he kept saying, you don't want any part of this, do we?
Me?
Yeah.
It's the learning curve.
Once you get it, like, I never was a great bronc rider, but if one took a lot of rein and went straight, that was awesome.
Yep.
But it's the giving their head back up and swooping and all that stuff where I suffered because I had bull riding in me. So, I was.
Dude, look at like how good a ride you made Sunday.
Yeah.
You still came off hard.
Yeah.
And you have had a lot of gnarly buck-offs in that arena.
Yeah.
With, and sometimes the arena is not drugged.
No.
And you just have that. There's some people, though, that there's a lot of people, if they hit the ground like you had, it would have cracked their egg. Like, some people are just a little more susceptible to it. And then there's other people like yourself who number one, you're in the prime of your health part of your life.
Yeah.
And then you're tough. And, you're squirrely, you're willing to move around in the air, but.
So have you been entering, or are you just still kind of?
I've been going to a lot of UPRAs.
Yep. Yeah, cool.
It's been good. Yeah.
He spent a week in Cody with Rod Hay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that you came right after I left the day before Rod.
I got there on
2 days before
Sunday. So
Roddy showed up Monday.
Yeah.
Yep. So I left. I think I left Sunday morning.
I'm so glad you went too.
Me too. Yeah. It was a good experience.
So Friday is when you rode?
Saturday.
No, or when you placed?
Yeah, I think it was either Thursday
Friday
or
night.
Friday.
I think, or maybe you texted me about it Friday, but the day you placed, I was like, me, Cole, Jordan, maybe Carson was in here, and I said, the moment he gets points on the board and cash in his pocket, or just points on the board,
And you just don't have that hanging over your head anymore.
that will be, well, you don't have it hanging over your head, but it's also just, you cannot help but have like another layer of confidence.
Right, yeah.
When I was getting on bareback horses, I was at a rodeo I shouldn't have been at, and Chris Harris he said, "You winning builds confidence. It's the only thing that will build confidence is winning." And I was like, "Oh, okay," but pretty much he was saying like, "You shouldn't be here." I got 2 jumped. The next day, I went to Fort Worth and got 1 jumped, flipped over, and got this scar on my hand from surgery that I had where I broke my hand. That was the beginning of the end of bareback riding for me. But essentially what Chris was saying is what you were saying. Go get on 2,500 head of something that you can win.
Yeah, I've been really trying to pick and choose my UPRA rodeos too. Like if I see a stock contractor's got like 2 rodeos that weekend and one's got 15,000 added and the other's got 65,000 or 6,500 added, I'm going to 6,500 added rodeo. And
you've been inches away from checks at some of them.
Yeah.
Who's got the nicest set of horses in that deal? Is it Mitch or
Johnny Hoyle?
Johnny Hoyle.
Yeah, I go to a lot of Cadillac.
That's Cadillac. Yeah. He's got some nice bulls too.
They all got good horses.
Hat Brand's probably got the best horses.
Hat Brand's got great horses.
As far as like,
yeah, Mitch.
But I mean,
Terrell,
like rider friendly ones that you're.
I would say Johnny.
Yeah.
Johnny's got a lot of those rodeos. The reason, and he's got a good set of horses, and he super caters to the the bronc riders.
Yeah.
Which, and then
He
he'll
does
have
to the bull riders too, though.
He does
like,
to them.
Like Brett,
Yep, he does.
Brett went to a bunch of those UPRAs, and the bulls were really nice.
But that bronc you got on in Will Cook's in Archer City,
Yeah.
like that, dude. I'd like to have that one at the house.
Yeah,
And then
Flying C.
You got on Uncle Buck at
TNT.
of TNT's
Yeah,
at
and Seymour. Yep.
I'd like to have that one at the house.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that they all are,
Mhm.
they've all got the good ones.
Yep.
He's been following Johnny's rodeos because, like, the weekend Marble Falls, Johnny had another rodeo. So anyway, we didn't get to go to El Dorado. I almost.
Man, I know. I wanted to go bad.
Are you going back up to Wyoming this summer at all?
I don't know.
If you do, swing into Jackson Hole.
Yeah, I've
They
heard.
got a bunch of nice broncs.
I've heard that.
When I've been there watching them, I'm like, man, I could probably spur.
Do they have a rodeo every night too?
It's 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, and Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
I thought about going up there and just getting my count to make the finals for Cody, but I don't know. It's a long ways to go for that.
Yeah, that. So Sunday we got an old Stace Smith mare. She's not that old, but she's just got a super perfect trip, kind of a just jump kick at the very end. And Donnie had a turning point this last Sunday on her. But anyhow, I don't crave teaching young bronc riders, because it's hard to find a horse like that. Like, I'll do it. I'll teach somebody, but like, bull riding is so much easier to level down a bull. So that's why anyhow. I imagine that guy that got on some of his first bulls that you were talking about, some of those bulls are probably the ones entered in the YBR. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. That's exactly
Right.
They're 950-pound hoppers,
Yes, sir.
And
Yep.
they'll be in the whatever that age group is. They call it senior riding. It's like steer riding and bull riding, and they're just ones I took to the Little Britches finals.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast, talking bull riding, talking faith. You got any more questions for him?
Man, I wish I was a bull rider, so I had a little more questions for you, but I enjoyed listening to you guys. Like, it was pretty insightful.
We usually end with life advice, just any sort of something that stuck with you or something you've lived by. Maybe you read it this week. But what you got, Donnie? I caught myself.
It always takes me by surprise. I don't know why.
Me too.
I don't know why I don't
Should have
prepare.
thought. I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've just been kind of saying burn your boats here lately, so
Yeah.
gonna stay with that.
I was talking
Tell
to
me what that means.
Just it comes from is it not Columbus, but the guy before him,
yeah.
Spanish. He was
Yeah,
Spanish.
from Spain.
Well, anyways, they got to the Americas and he just kind of burned all their boats, so they didn't have any choice but to go forward. You know, they couldn't go back. There was no turning back. It's kind of what that means for me.
Mine. Just because I said it today on the phone call, a friend called me and he's got a relative who made some bad decisions and he needs to make them right. And instead of making them right now, he's trying to make more bad decisions. And they kind of compound each other. You try to hide stuff, cover it up, whatever. But I just told him, I said, he's about to give advice to this person and say, man, we need to do something different. And it just kind of do the right thing for the right reasons and live with the consequences. And it applies to everybody. Like sometimes, you know, his started with a bad decision and then he needed to get off that path and start making right decisions. But sometimes, like, it could apply to anybody. Like, you can make the right decision, and it doesn't always mean that's going to be a cherry-picking path. Like, you still do the right thing for the right reasons and live with the consequences. Because sometimes there's bad consequences to right decisions in the short term. Anyway, what do you got?
Well, given the time of year, like don't miss people, you know. It's like don't miss the living part of it because tomorrow's not promised, you know. And my son Aaron, the night he was killed, I didn't talk to him that day, you know. And they had their first meeting for college rodeo, and I got in bed and there's a story behind this, way back behind this. But anyway, I got in bed and I was laying there. I was like, man, I didn't talk to Aaron today. So I got up, texted him, love you, son. And got back in bed, got tucked in all cozy, and my phone rings. So I get up and answer the phone. It's Aaron. He's like, what are you doing, old man? I said, oh, I'm just trying to sleep. Like it was pretty late, you know. I said, what are you doing? He goes, oh, man, we're just hanging out. I said, hey, you know what? You need to get on schedule. You know, you got college, you got classes coming up. You need. And he's like, yeah, whatever. You know, he was. And he said, hey, you remember meeting this kid at Deadwood or whatever? He said, you signed his hat. And I said, nah, not really. He just hands his phone to this kid, and this kid, hey, Mr. Custer, you know, I got your autograph up there. And so we talked for a minute, and then they give the phone back to Aaron, and me and Aaron talked for a little bit. Last thing I said is, I love you, son. I love you, Dad. And man, I cherish that conversation. And so, you know, just be quick to get things right when things are wrong with people, because
You bet.
things can get wrong with people pretty easy, and we hold on to it, and you never know. I mean, I don't know if I'd have been able to live with myself if I'd have been at odds with him, and he, you know, last thing he said to me was, I hate you, Dad, or what, you know,
sure.
or whatever. I mean, I know he would never hate me. I mean, hope he wouldn't, but he never did. But the last thing he said to me is, I love you, Dad.
Yes, sir.
And I said, I love you, son. That's the last things we said. And so, you know, fast forward to my dad. Last time I saw my dad, you know, he couldn't communicate with me at the time, and I just kissed him on the cheek, and he was trying to talk to me. I said, it's all been said. Nothing left to say.
Yes, sir.
I said, kiss my boy when you get there. And that's the last thing I said to my dad. So anyway, I guess just of all things, just get things right with people quick, and don't leave yourself in a position for regrets, you know.
Death is the most final permanent thing we got on this earth. That's heavy. Well, thank y'all for listening. Thank you for tuning in. If you listen this far, and look up Cody Custer. He's got his dates for his schools on his Instagram, Facebook. Check those out if you're interested in riding bulls. And he's the man to teach you. Pow, pow, and on to the next one, old son. Gonna do the music?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Forgot. I was listening. If I can figure it out.
There it goes.
Yep.
In the back end, bucked him off, but he's a badass. But I don't know if he's ever bucked off 5 or 6 in a row, and that's where he was at. Like, he was just, and they went to the finals, got bucked off both at the high school finals, and so I just told him he come home, and I said, Wasey, go back to work. I said, you have tendency to cut across, but when you kick your feet loose, it works. I said, you can't clamp down and try to muscle in bulls, so you got to be kicking your feet loose. And then he goes and he was 88.5 points or 88, whatever it was.
Dang.
Stuck it on.
What's his name? Wasey
Shala.
Wasey Shala.
You don't
Look
know
him
Wasey?
up. Oh, yeah, I know Wasey. Yeah, we used to travel together. Yeah, me and Wasey. We've got in the house Mr. Cody Custer, world champion. He is just going to share some knowledge, some wisdom. We're going to talk about his story, talk about his faith, and talk a little bit about your rodeo schools. You've got a few coming up, got some dates on your Instagram.
Yeah, I try to keep stuff on social media, just keep that information out there. And my phone number is readily available to everybody. As I've said, it's probably on some bathroom walls somewhere. So you can get my number. Anybody can get my number.
You bet. Yep. So we're going to dive into this conversation. Then we're about to go buck some bulls as soon as that's over. So check out the next rodeo time that comes out, because you'll get to hear some bull riding knowledge there too. So it's hot outside.
Yep. It's hot in here.
It's hot in here. We're about to buck some bulls, have a podcast.
Yep.
Now on to the stories.